Hello and welcome to the Radio Academy podcast. If you listened last week, we're delighted to have you back. And if you're new here, you've picked a great episode to get started with. I'm Roisin Hasty, and each week I'm making it my mission to find out more about a different radio and podcast project by chatting to the people who made them happen. We like to think of this next 20 minutes as a celebration of the amazing talent that's out there. And this week, talent is the key word because we're focusing on a project that's pulled together Ed Sheeran, Joy Crooks, Anne-Marie, Emily Sandé and so many more huge artists, together with the BBC Concert Orchestra, all live from the iconic Maida Vale studios.
We've had some really touching emails and surprising emails from listeners who are just saying it's brought a tear to their eye.
Like we shouldn't underestimate the power of radio, that we can bring a live concert orchestra and a live artist to someone's living room.
Yep, that's what radio does, which nothing else can, really.
Yeah, this week we're chatting to Ken Bruce and his producer Phil McGarvey, as well as the head of music for Radio 2, Jeff Smith, and Sarah Freestone from the BBC Concert Orchestra. They'll all be telling us about Radio 2's Piano Room Month, which continues until the end of February.
Later this morning, it's Will Young in our Radio 2 piano room with the BBC Concert Orchestra. He's along in Studio 3 here at Maida Vale. And as usual, we can have a little eavesdrop on the rehearsal, see how things are going.
The thing is, I've asked Ken Bruce, I literally messaged him the whole time, can I come on Popmaster? I think I can get 39. And he's always going on about Richie, like, Richie's getting 39. I'm a 39er. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not talking American football. He won't answer I know he knows it's me, and I can see the blue ticks. Do you know what I mean? Just put me on Popmaster, I'll get a 39. Just put me on Popmaster.
Right, let's get to it. Now, as we're recording this, you guys are actually still at Maida Vale. You've literally just finished recording one.
Yeah, we just stepped out of the big studio, Maida Vale 3 here, and back in Maida Vale 7, which is the studio I'm doing the main programme from, my programme, every morning. So it's got the DJ desk here and everything, so that works. And then I just nip through at 11:30 every morning to the big music studio where everybody is waiting and ready to go, and some beautiful sounds come out of that. We've had a lovely session just this very morning from Will Young.
Nice. And how has it felt being back in a location like Maida Vale, having a whole orchestra, live artists in? It must feel amazing.
It's absolutely wonderful because, as you know, everybody has missed music for the last 2 years, and I've just found it absolutely delightful to be in the same room as great singers and, as you said, the members of the BBC Concert Orchestra, and it's just such a full sound we're getting in there, and I think it sounds almost even better when you're listening on the radio live or afterwards on BBC Sounds. It's such a thrill, because if you love music at all, then this is the way you want to hear it, and it's absolutely something only the BBC can do, really, because we've got the resource of this terrific orchestra. And it's interesting to see how different artists are using the orchestra. Most of them are using strings, but some others are having a bit of brass in there, some woodwind and some percussion. So it's just interesting to hear the different sounds and sort of musical colours.
Yeah, it's different when you're in the room as to how the listeners hear it. So I always make a point of listening back BBC Sounds when I'm taking a break as soon as the show's finished, because you can hear things that you don't in the room. Some things that might have bothered you as a producer are actually fine, and you might pick up on some other things. I might think about, how we phrase a particular question or go into a song for the next day. So we're constantly kind of refining the process. And it's interesting, though, how far we've came from the original piano room idea, which I think was something like 10 years ago. Elton John was having a chat with our then boss, Lewis Carney, and somehow Lewis came away from that meeting with a promise of one of Elton John's best pianos gifted to Radio 2, which was wonderful. And it sat in reception for a little while, and then somebody had the bright idea to take it up to the studios on the 6th floor. Probably not the same person who had to actually get it up to the 6th floor. So initially it just kind of sat as a prop, and then someone thought, well, we should use it. And I think Ken started to have some sessions maybe about 8 or 9 years ago, and they weren't labelled piano room sessions, and it kind of evolved as time went on, and we had some amazing artists like Benny Anderson and Stevie Nicks, right through to contemporary artists like the Shires and Freya Ridings, who have all appeared in the piano room. And when COVID hit, like live music everywhere, piano room doors were temporarily closed, and we come up with the idea, Jeff Smith and Ricky Marshall, the previous producer, come up with the idea of house music, which was continuing to deliver the live music performances we were all missing, but from home. So the artists would record their bits from home, they would self-film. But this was the great twist that I think that's something only the BBC could do. We added in the BBC Concert Orchestra, who were also recording from home, self-filming, and then it was all mixed by the live music team. And I think probably over the course of about a year and a half, we had people like Barry Manilow, Richard Marx, Ronan Keating, Aloe Black, James Blunt, an amazing range of artists who performed in house music. And it was fantastic. And considering, what was going on at the time, it was great to have live music, but we've always wanted to be able to return. And when we knew it was maybe going to be safe to do so at the start of this year, we started to think about how live music came back, and the kind of idea for Piano Room Month was kind of born. So we bring back Piano Room, but as I say, we supersized it. We thought, how can we take it on the next level? And we thought, well, we've got this great relationship with the concert orchestra.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an exciting project. Looking down the list of names that are taking part in this, you've got David Gray, Emily Sandé, Ed Sheeran, Anne-Marie, Joy Crooks all coming in. They're artists that span generations as well. There's so many people that are going to be listening to this, enjoying what they're hearing on the radio. Yeah,
and the performers too are listening to each other, because Will Young said today, I was listening to Joy Crooks yesterday. She was fantastic. What a beautiful voice and what great songs she writes. So they are aware of each other and listening to each other, and I think that's enhancing every single performance. It is really lovely to see all these different styles of music making come together. And we've got bands, we've got Tears for Fears, Simple Minds coming up. We've got solo artists who have been around quite a while, and some who are brand new, like Joy Crooks. So we like to think there's this huge variety, this range of music we're able to bring people.
It must be reassuring as well that such big artists, they still want to work on radio programmes, and they still want to come in and do a live performance and pick the songs and impress audiences, because they have so many different platforms now that they can be on, and platforms that they have a lot more control over as well.
Well, people, I think, are still slightly impressed by the BBC name and by working in Maida Vale, where, everybody who is anybody has recorded at some time or another. So, going right back into the 40s and 50s. So this is a historic building. And to work with an orchestra, not everybody gets the chance to do that, and certainly not live. Quite often, if they do have strings, it'll be a track they've had pre-recorded sometime before. So here they are with a live orchestra in the room and new arrangements, and the whole thing just takes on a life of its own, I think.
What's been really interesting about the classic songs is that some of the artists have kind of rediscovered and almost fell in love with the versions, because if you take someone like Clean Bandit, who's, Rather Be, which is what they did for us, was a massive hit and was, still played on the radio, and they've obviously performed it all over the world. But, if you talk to a lot of people who are in bands, they can get kind of sick of hearing their own music. But Grace was telling Ken how much she loved the version that the orchestra had helped arrange, and it kind of almost made her fall in love with the song again. And we've seen that time and time again over this month, just artists who are blown away. They always make a point of thanking the orchestra, but just hearing it in a fresh way. And I think it's interesting, James Morrison was on talking about how he's re-recorded his greatest hits album to how the songs sound now when they play them, and it just shows that songs can have a life and they can evolve.
Okay, let's bring in Jeff now. What's your role as the head of music been in all of this?
So I've booked all the artists for it. It's taken about 3 months to kind of get it together from initial kind of conception. It was just a case of like, here's the broad idea. We want to do, these artists over the month of February. It worked out that kind of 20 would fit. I then looked at that kind of opportunity and thought, what is a representation of the broad range of music on Radio 2? And one of the things from my point of view as head of music is that I'm trying to make the station as multi-generational appeal as we can. Clearly, people over 35 are our first stop, but they all have families as well. And that idea of, everybody getting together to feel great when listening to our radio station is an important factor in it.
Yeah, and quite a big job, like booking everyone in as well. But did you find that you were speaking to artists and they were like kind of pulling your arm off to get involved after 2 years of not being able to gig at all? And here you are offering them Maida Vale with a full orchestra.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think you can hear it on air. The artists are more excited than anybody to be able to get back into live music. I mean, a number of them obviously are touring again now, but I think it was David Gray who sort of said, after the performance that that's the sort of radio he loves doing, that and more of that, please, and he loves being in a studio performing live and talking live to the audience as it happens. And that's the brilliant thing about radio, isn't it? It's one of the kind of like key things that we kind of offer. So absolutely fantastic. We can summon up amazing visualization on it, but just to be able to hear that and also from the artist's point of view to engage with that, everybody was really excited about taking part.
And have you noticed that the reaction from the audience has been really good to this, because they've missed live music, haven't they?
People are responding quite emotionally to it. I've been really delighted by the way people are coming out and saying, oh, yeah, I absolutely love this.
We've had some really touching emails and surprising emails from listeners who are just saying it's brought a tear to their eye. It's really helped soundtrack their working from home. Some people have taken up the piano again.
I love that reaction from a listener where they said, I'm working from home and there's a live concert orchestra like soundtracking it. Like we shouldn't underestimate the power of radio, that we can bring a live concert orchestra and a live artist to someone's living room.
Yep, that's what radio does, which nothing else can really. I mean, you can have your Spotify playlist, you can have your favourite things on repeat, but when you hear something you weren't expecting, didn't ask for, didn't specifically request, when you hear something coming out of your radio and it's live and it's a special moment, then it really does cut through, gets to people, and they delightfully get back to us and tell us how much they're enjoying it. So it really does prove the power of communication that radio still has.
Sarah, you play violin for the BBC Concert Orchestra. What do you make of that reaction from listeners?
It's amazing, and it's wonderful that we can bring it to people's front rooms. We did it during lockdown for Ken's show. We did the house radio sessions, but of course that was remote. This is rather special because it's live.
So what's your role in that whole session then as an orchestra? Are you given the pop songs that the performers are going to be performing, because they do covers as well? How long do you get to prepare and everything?
Well, I'm actually an arranger as well, so I've arranged 2 of the sessions, Jack Severetti a couple of weeks ago and Natalie Imbruglia. And as an arranger, we talk through with the artist or their musical director what sort of direction they want to go in. And then we orchestrate it, because it's not for a live setting, because there are microphones. It's the same with writing like a film score. You can write for something that ordinarily may not be heard very well on a stage, but because there's a microphone in front of it, you can do what you like. So actually the freedom is immense. So on one of the arrangements, for example, I had an alto flute, which is it's a big version of a flute. It's much quieter and it's the most gorgeous sound, but very often in a concert hall, you can't really hear it because it's just too quiet compared to other instruments. And the orchestra does what the orchestra does best, which is they read it and then they record it. They play it live with very little rehearsal time. That's kind of what the orchestra is renowned for.
That is so impressive.
There's a 2-hour rehearsal in the morning on the day, which is where we meet the artists. A lot of them we've met before because we've worked together quite a lot over the past few years. And we rehearse with them for 2 hours, and a lot of that is technical. It's about sound balancing and making sure that all the instruments can be heard, that everyone's happy with their monitoring. And then Ken walks into the studio and we do it live. It's brilliant. He's a big fan of the orchestra. We're huge fans of his. He knows people by name. He's a drummer. He's a music fan. So it's always joyful and a lot of fun. So it's been really special to be back in the studio with him.
Now, every week on this podcast, we ask our guests to go through 3 things that they would like to share with the listeners, sort of like your pearls of wisdom from working in radio, or maybe even just working on this project in particular. What 3 things would you like to share?
Well, speaking for myself, I would say live is best. live is always best for all sorts of reasons. You know, first of all, there is that immediacy, the sense that something you say can't be taken back, and also that if anybody who's ever recorded anything knows that you get 2 minutes in and you say, oh, no, stop, we'll do that again. When you're live, you can't do that. And you know, people listening love it live. So live is best is my first one. I'll let Phil chip in with his first one, I think.
I think from this project, as a kind of microcosm of what I've kind of learned over the years working in radio, is you can't overstate the importance of collaboration and communication. Well, actually, that's too, but, you know, collaboration, in my experience, always makes things better, because as much as I might think my ideas are the best, and I'm not saying that's what I think, but when you sit and you talk it through with other people, someone might say, oh, what about that? Or, you know, have you tried it this way? There was one of the little tweaks we made to the production process early on was we were going to, at the start of each piano room, we were going to repeat a song from the day before. But we, you know, one of the guys in the music team said, well, what about just doing a quick little montage? Because, you know, all the other shows are doing a little a repeat track, and this will give you something different. And I thought, brilliant, that's exactly how we do it. And, you know, it doesn't matter where good ideas come from.
Yeah. And fun, I think, is one of the words we don't hear enough in radio. There's too many people, I think, you know, heads down. I've got to go to my so-and-so meeting at 2:30, then I've got my other meeting at 5 o'clock, and then we've got to look at the figures and all that. Look, it's fun. It's radio. It's got to be fun. If you're having fun, the listeners should also be having fun, as long as you're not having too much fun and forgetting they're there. But fun, and that's what we're having this week. You know, it's lovely music, but this month, I should say, we're having lovely music, but we're also having fun. We're having a laugh talking to the people. So fun, important.
My third one would be rehearsal, because, again, this is all something new for us. So on Ken's kind of normal show, it's kind of formatted, and the kind of same things roughly appear in the same place every day in terms of the features tracks of my years, the love song, Popmaster. But in something like this, we're doing for the first time. Even if we're doing it on day one or we're doing it on day 16 like we are today, we go through rehearsal process in the morning, just making sure all the beats are there. And usually we'll throw something up like, you know, the radio clock's not quite right, or Ken's backup mic's wrong, or actually you're playing this clip, but what about if we do that, because blah, blah, blah. So I don't think you can over-rehearse enough. I think when you become blasé about things like that, that's when mistakes happen. So
I'll do a third one, which is something that the great Terry Wogan said some years ago. He said, be natural, be yourself, because they decide quite quickly, meaning the listeners. Listeners decide quite quickly if they like you or not. If they don't like you, there's nothing you can do about it. Be yourself. It'll either work or it won't.
Such great advice. I definitely need to start writing all of these down somewhere so I can keep hold of them. Now you can listen to all of Radio 2's Piano Room performances on BBC Sounds and watch them on BBC iPlayer as well. Big thanks to the team for taking us behind the scenes. Next week, we'll be talking about a project that is quite literally out of this world.
We're humans from planet Earth.
This is Fun Kids.
Mission transmission. The second that it left our transmitter, within 1.6 seconds, that broadcast entered deep space and it shot past the moon. That's a journey that took the Apollo 11 astronauts 76 hours to do when man first landed on the moon.
Mind-blowing. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit like and subscribe. And as always, if there's something you'd like us to feature, email us at podcast@radioacademy.org. And don't forget, we couldn't make this without the support of Radio Academy members. You can sign up at radioacademy.org for just £3 a month. Thanks for listening.